Leader Sir Keir Starmer sacked his first frontbencher this week. Rebecca Long-Bailey was relieved of her brief as Shadow Education Secretary after sharing an article that Keir Starmer said contained an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. I'm joined now by the former leader of the Labour Party, Ed Miliband, now the party's Shadow Business Secretary. Welcome, Mr Miliband. Was it right that Rebecca Long-Bailey was sacked?
It was. It's important to explain why, because Rebecca is a very decent person, but the reason why it was a problem, the Maxine Peake interview, so the original interview and what Rebecca then tweeted, is not that it had a criticism of the state of Israel. I'm a big critic of what the Israeli government has done on a number of occasions. It's that it was a false criticism of the state of Israel, linked, or rather the Israeli Defense Force, linked to the death of George Floyd, wrongly, saying that somehow the tactics that had killed George Floyd had been learnt from the Israeli Defense Force. Let me explain what this is an important point. And the problem is that over the centuries, when calamitous things have happened, Jews have been blamed. And that's why there was an anti-Semitism issue in relation to this. And that's why I believe Keir took the right decision.
Do you think that Rebecca Long-Bailey understood that? Do you think that she is anti-Semitic?
No, I don't think she is anti-Semitic. I think she made a significant error of judgment. I know Rebecca well. I think she's a decent person. But let me tell you what this underlines. This underlines the fact that Keir recognises the gravity of the hurt that has been caused to the Jewish community over the last few years by our failure to deal properly with issues of anti-Semitism. And it indicates that he is absolutely determined to get on top of it, because we cannot have a debate at the next general election about whether Labour is an anti-Semitic party or whether Labour is allowing anti-Semitism.
Well, just in the interest of natural justice, as it were, let's remind ourselves what Rebecca Long-Bailey herself said, that she said that she'd retweeted an interview that her constituent, Maxine Peake, the actress, had given. Its main thrust, the interview, was anger with the Conservative government's handling of the current emergency and a call for Labour Party unity. In no way was my retweet an intention to endorse every part of that article. That is a perfectly reasonable explanation. And I wonder, therefore, whether sacking her so abruptly wasn't an overreaction.
I don't think it was an overreaction. I don't think you can... I don't think there can be a sense of overreaction when you know the scale of the problem we face. And the problem about the interview, and I've met Maxine Peake as well, who I think is a perfectly decent person, but the problem, and Maxine Peake has apologised. Yeah, and I think that's significant, because I think the problem about it was it's the casualness of it that is in a way the problem. A terrible thing happens to George Floyd, and the Israeli Defense Force is somehow singled out. I think Britain has trained has had exchanges with American police forces, but Britain wasn't singled out. And I think, and that's why we've got to be incredibly vigilant on these issues.
See, not everybody in your party agrees with that, do they? Because John McDonnell, very senior figure in the party, former Shadow Chancellor, he says, it's always been said criticism of practices of Israeli state is not anti-Semitic. I don't believe, therefore, that this article is, or Rebecca Long-Bailey should have been sacked. I stand in solidarity with her.
Sure, well, there's always a disagreement, and Keir's the leader. But, honestly, I'm a big critic of the state of Israel. Look, there were parts of the Jewish community that didn't like lots of the things I said about Israel when I was leader. I've never shrunk from criticisms of Israel. When I hear that there may be the annexation of 30% of the West Bank by the Israeli government, which may happen under the so-called Trump peace plan soon, I think it's appalling. It's absolutely not. Okay. It's absolutely not about whether you can criticise the state of Israel. I want to be crystal clear with you about that. That is not anti-Semitism.
But as I say, John McDonnell disagrees with you about that.
Sure.
I mean, very, very senior member of the party. What should be done about him?
No, well, nothing's going to be done about him. Look, the point about this is that I think there's a danger here, which is that people try and make this into a sort of wider issue. I heard something in your paper review about how Keir wants to purge these people. He's not about purges. I know the guy. Let me just make this point. Look, he's a principled guy. He's a guy with integrity. He wants to change this country, and he wants to change this country by unifying the Labour Party, but also not having the Labour Party sort of mired in issues which frankly sort of provide a stain on us.
But it's not exactly zero tolerance if Rebecca Long-Bailey is removed, but John McDonnell and many other people in the Labour Party stand in solidarity with the original article.
Come on, Andrew.
They do.
He's not about to expel everybody in the Labour Party who says this. Look, well, the point is Rebecca Long-Bailey said this thing, tweeted this article. Keir took very strong action. and now we need to move on and deal with the issues of anti-Semitism that we
All
face.
right. Well, let's turn to the left in the Labour Party and their feelings about this, because, as you know, a lot of people are really, really worried, really angry about this. Some people leaving the Labour Party, some people staying. Ian Lavery, who was a former party chairman, has encouraged people to, in his words, stay inside the party and fight.
Good.
Is that what they should do?
Well, I mean, we should fight the Conservatives, definitely. I completely agree with Ian Lavery on that. You know, it's.
So this is not a wider purge of the left about to start?
No, of course it isn't. You know, I've known Keir Starmer a long time. He's somebody who cares passionately about the inequality we face in the country, about the climate emergency we face, about the jobs crisis we face. And, you know, I think sometimes, and I thought this sometimes during Jeremy Corbyn's years, I actually think on policy, there was a lot more that united us than divided us. I think, you know, sometimes we talk about burying our differences. I think in the Labour Party, we sometimes are good at burying our similarities. And actually, you know, there was lots we agreed on. So Keir wants a radical, transformative agenda for this country. But we've got to focus on that. Right. And we've got to not focus, we've got to deal with these other things that have been a massive problem for us. Well,
we'll come on to the radical transformative agenda in a moment. But let me ask you about what's going on right now, which is the unlocking, the end of the lockdown.
Sure.
By and large, it's a very important moment for the country. Pubs are going to open, for instance. Restaurants are going to open on Saturday. Does the Labour Party support that unlocking?
It does, yes. Because we've been constructive about this, and I think you've seen in the way Keir has approached these issues, he's recognising that there are lots of difficult balancing decisions that you've got to take. And we recognise, and I recognise as Shadow Business Secretary, the damage being done to parts of the hospitality sector that can't open, to a whole range of sectors. Our argument with the government is not about that. Our argument is that they are pulling the rug from under lots of parts of our economy which can only either partially or not reopen, let me finish this point, not reopen at all, by saying, and this is sort of, I think this is just really wrong, they're saying they're going to have to start contributing from the beginning of August to the furlough of their employees.
So you'd like to see the furlough go on.
And end it from October. I would, yes. And I'll tell you,
very expensive. It's hugely expensive for the country.
Yeah, but
how long does it go on?
But the cost of not acting is greater than the cost of acting. And if you look at what other countries are doing, whether it's New Zealand or Italy or Spain or France or Germany, they're all recognising there are certain sectors. I mean, look, take hospitality, for example. The government's own website says that there'll be a 25 to 40% drop in revenue for that sector, even at 1 metre. Now, there's 3 million people who work in hospitality, Andrew. You know, we've already got 2.8 million people claiming unemployment-related benefits. I fear Thatcher levels of unemployment, and
yet the government can't carry on supporting that number of jobs, 9 million jobs.
But it's not going to be 9 million because it's not going to be 9 million. And here's the thing: you've got to have a bridge between the end of the furlough and a proper job creation programme. And so there's two things that are problematic at the moment. One is the precipitate decisions on the furlough, and secondly, why in goodness' name are we not having a budget this summer? Well, we've got potentially the worst economic recession in 300 years, and the Treasury is deciding they're not going to have a budget. Let us have a budget that creates those jobs, but don't leave people falling into an abyss between the end of the furlough and those jobs being created.
You were in government at the time of the financial crash.
I was.
And you remember Alistair Darling, Chancellor there. He says there should be a VAT cut now to help business. Do you agree with that?
I think that's one thing that should be considered. That's not top of my priority list, though. Let me tell you why. This is in particular a sectoral recession. I mean, it's a general recession, but it's also in particular a sectoral recession. So look, the key thing you've got to focus on is what are we going to do about those sectors that are hardest hit? How are we going to help them with things like the furlough? And how are we going to do everything we can to create jobs? Now, one of the things I do think we should be doing is, and you talked about the last Labour government, we introduced something called the Future Jobs Fund, which was a plan whereby young people who are out of work, their wages would be paid for 6 months, essentially, and we would persuade businesses to take them on. Right. I mean, we need
you'd like to see now.
Yeah, we need a turbocharged version of the Future Jobs Fund, because the crisis is, if anything, much bigger.
Let's go even wider then.
Yeah.
Because this week we hear the Prime Minister is going to make a big speech about turbocharging the British
I've seen
economy.
the pictures.
And you've seen the pictures, but the words imply there's going to be a lot of new infrastructure spending, a lot more spending on training, and a lot more spending directed at what used to be the Red Wall and is now the Blue Wall, those constituencies in the North and Midlands of England. And what he is reported to believe is that the people who suffered from the financial crisis last time and the years of austerity must not be made to suffer again. They're even calling it blue Labour. That is a real problem for you as a party.
Why do I feel a bit sceptical about the Prime Minister's words? Because look, the Prime Minister, he's very good at words. He's very good at promises. The world-beating test and trace system that was going to be in place by June the 1st. All of the other promises he's made. The problem is there is a grand canyon between his rhetoric and the reality. Take the furlough. Look, if he was really serious about protecting jobs, he wouldn't be pulling the... If he was really serious about creating jobs, he would have a budget for jobs this summer to help our young people. Okay. And just on the infrastructure point, let me just sort of apply a test to this. Let's bring the money forward, including in my area, green spending. So there's £9 billion that the government promised on a retrofit programme, which is about insulation and all of those kind of things, energy efficiency measures. They help households, they create jobs. Bring that money forward, do it now. Bring forward the billions of pounds on social housing. Let's not just have lofty, blustery promises. Let's have reality.
One slightly mean question to end with.
Oh, gosh, yes, go on.
You've seen Keir...
You've asked me many mean questions over the years.
Well, here's another one. You've seen Keir Starmer now in operation for a few months.
Yes.
Is he going to be a better leader of the Labour Party than you?
Definitely. I think we've seen that already. Look, I certainly never had his approval ratings. I mean, look, I think he's made a great start. I think he's shown not just competence, but I think he's shown the kind of seriousness that this crisis demands. And you know what I think about Keir? I think the more people see of him, the more they're going to see the integrity, the principle, and the decency that I know really well.
Ed Miliband, thanks very much indeed for coming to talk to us. Now